Dear viewers, welcome to this edition of the Persecution Report, a podcast dedicated to uncovering the truth behind current situations in Bangladesh. As you know, Bangladesh just had an election, a national election, and a referendum. Both have garnered a lot of controversies in the country and beyond. However, we also understand that this may potentially be an end of the 18 months period of Yunus regime, a regime that would be marked in the history as one of the worst regimes in all respects, in terms of their human rights violations, in terms of their persecution, in terms of their complete and utter incompetence in administering law and order as well as ensuring economic activities. As a result, we are at a crossroad. At one end, we are seeing an end of a terrible time of under Yunus regime. On the other hand, the country and the world are equally skeptic about what future holds for us, not least due to the dubious and very controversial referendum, which would lead to certain changes in the constitution. And these changes can potentially create further troubles, deadlock, and political uncertainties. While we are heading towards these situations, it's about time that we also reflect on the election, the very elections that we experienced and we witnessed. What are the problems with those elections? What actually happened on 12th of February? Whether or not the elections would be legitimate, whether or not the elections would be acceptable and would have proper administered situations and processes which would have global recognition. So, in order to discuss these intricacies, in order to discuss these issues, we have a panel of experts today. We have Mr. Kazi Mamoon and Mr. Tono Imroz Alom. Both of them are human rights activists and also quite eminent and well recognized and well known political commentators and activists. We also have Mr. Anwar Shadad Jihan as my co host. So, without further ado, I would like to request Mr. Jihan to give us a snapshot of what happened on the 12th of February and how things panned out on that day, and any relevant information, statistics, and incidents that we should be aware of. Over to you, Mr. Jihan.
Thank you, Professor Day. And also at the same time, many thanks to those who used to mock and criticize the 2018 election and who used to point out the irregularities of the 2018 election. Because now we have the greatest circus of century, the 2026 election. 10 years from now, not only the Bangladeshi people, but the world will know what happened in 2026. Bangladeshis went to the polls this 12th February with a hope to have a new beginning. But what we have seen on that day of election and the day before are anything but your regular, normal aspects of an election. From vote buying, abuse of money, to ballot stuffing that started even before the night begins. You know, people used to mock the 2018 election about night ballot and whatnot. But this time we have seen that the election began late afternoon. So let me go over some of the irregularities of this circus, which will help shine some light into the overall scenario here. Let me first start by what the Awami League chief, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, has said after the election. She has very clearly rejected this election as false, and she demanded the resignation of this illegal Yunus government. Why she did that? Let me talk about some of the irregularities. Let's start with the vote buying. We know that, this is a culture in Bangladesh before election, the use of money. But the level that we have experienced this time is mind-blowing. We have seen a Jamaat leader, to be specific, the Thakurgaon Jamaat Amir Belal Uddin Pradhan. He was caught at the airport with Bangladeshi 74 lakh taka, just casually carrying 74 lakh taka, as if it is nothing. The goal was to buy vote, use this money to manipulate the election. Similar incidents occurred throughout the country, in Borishal, in Nauga, in Kumilla, everywhere. We have seen people being caught with cash, huge sum of cash. The goal here was to manipulate the election. The Asian Network for Free Election found this vulnerability to be very risky, because this turns the act of voting into a commercial transaction. So throughout the country, more than 30-40 people were even detained for possessing cash. Then let's talk about seals, ballots being pre-stamped. Social media was flooded with videos of pre-stamped ballot, already stamped for certain parties. The Dhaka 16 candidate, BNP candidate Aminul, he seeked suspension of the election result, alleging pre-stamped ballot, inappropriate ballot counting, and all that. Then, if we look at the Dhaka 13, there were people who went to the polls and they were told that your votes were already casted. We have seen videos. I don't know, the Dhaka Metropolitan Police later rejected this claim, but we have seen the police commissioner claiming that his vote was also casted. So this is an election where the police commissioner's vote was already casted. He did not have the opportunity to vote. In North Sindhi, as BD Digest found out on the ground, the Islami Andolan Bangladesh candidate, he could not vote. He could not cast his own vote. That was a common trend throughout Bangladesh on election day. Then if we look at the independent candidate, Rumin Farhana, Barrister Rumin Farhana, she alleged that ballots were already stuffed, stamped, and then also on the election day, people are forcing to stuff ballot for a particular candidate. Similar thing happened in Mymensingh 11, where video circulated showing people abusing the ballot and stuffing the ballot. What is most crucial here, Professor Day, is what happened to the rights of the Awami League supporters. Millions of Awami League supporters, their civic rights, their constitutional rights of voting, being able to vote, was completely snatched. They were forced to go to the polls because we know that, socially, they have to survive. So they were forced to go to vote. But what they did, it is also extraordinary. This is their way of showing protest, that they don't agree with this election. Then, not only the pre-stamped ballot or ballot stuffing, then the election ended, and it was time to count the vote. We have seen 40 ballot count. There is allegation against the spouse of a candidate, whereas she went and allegedly influenced the ballot counting. And the most shocking aspect is that the voter turnout, in midday at noon, the voter turnout was 14%. But in 1 hour, the voter turnout went to about 33%, a 19% jump in a matter of 1 hour, meaning 23 million people voted only in a matter of only 1 hour. So each vote in 5 seconds, which is mathematically and practically impossible. In Rajshahi, we have seen 244% voter turnout. Now, being an engineer, I'm not sure whether this 244% is in frequency domain or in the time domain. This is the ridiculous level that this election was. It is completely mathematically impossible. We cannot have 244% voter turnout. So again, to conclude, I would again go back to what Awami League Chief Sheikh Hasina's son, Mr. Sojib Wajed Joy, stated after the election, that this election was sham. But being a democratic party, Awami League respects democracy, so Awami League would be willing to see what the future holds. But again, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has rejected this election, and she demanded the cancellation of this election and demanded resignation of Yunus. I hope that this helps shine the light into the overall election. Back to you, Professor Dev.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jehan. That's very insightful. And also for our viewers, I think I should add a couple of more stats or information. One being the total vote cast. And we have heard about some of the irregularities which Mr. Jehan said. Even if we take those irregularities or if we factor those into the equation, even after that, the total vote cast during these elections was roughly around 60% according to the Election Commission. And this is the lowest voter number under any apolitical administration since 1991. So if you look at 1996, 2001 and 2008, if we consider these three elections, which were also administered by neutral apolitical caretaker governments or interim governments, the voter turnout was between 75 to 80%. So we can clearly see 20% less than 2008. So it's not about the inclusivity of parties. We know that the Awami League has been forcefully kept out of the elections, but also it's about people's participation. This government should not feel complacent or content because the 40%, according to their statistics, actually the actual number could be a lot higher, 40% of the voters did not show up during the election day. So inclusivity is the first major concerns that we can see. And I would like to invite Mr. Alam to reflect on that inclusivity in terms of voter number, inclusivity in terms of political parties' involvement, and also inclusivity in terms of the different race, gender, ethnicity, and also religious background people being involved in the electoral process. Over to you, Mr. Alam. You're on mute, Mr. Alam.
I was muted. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Inclusivity. Inclusivity has been the one term that's defining this election. Observers from home and abroad, that they are asking this government time and time again to make this election participatory and inclusive. That has not happened. And when they mean inclusivity, we know the diplomatic languages. Inclusivity they are referring to is the inclusiveness of all political opinions, which includes Bangladesh Awami League, the largest political party of the country. As we have seen, if we take which year was the 2008 election, the most recent election, which according to their standard was a free and fair election. Let's, for the sake of an argument, we take that into consideration. We could see Bangladesh Awami League's vote count was 48%. Again, 6 to 7% of the vote counts were also in favor of progressive political parties and moderate political parties. So 48 plus 6 to 7, you can say 54 to 55%. So anyway, it is without Awami League, it is now without the other parties, it is 48%, almost the half of the voting counts. And with Awami League, it's 48 plus another 7% is 53, over 50%. In this election, what we have seen is that this 50% people, over 50% people, that didn't have a political choice. When I say didn't have a political choice, I mean that they did not have a left-wing alternative. Wherever we go in the world, we see two political fractions among the people. The right wing, let's say for United States, center right wing is the Republican Party, and the center left, which is the Democratic Party, the progressive and the conservative. Same in Britain, Labour Party, the progressive, then you have the Tories, the conservative sides. In this election in Bangladesh, we have seen the progressive side, led by Bangladesh Awami League, was not able to participate. They were barred from participation in the festivity of democracy, which is an election, national parliament election. So this election was not inclusive. Without 50% of the people, you cannot call an election inclusive. Plus, we have seen government officials and the advisory council members. They are taking sides in the election. It's not free, it's not fair. We are seeing Jamaat Islami and BNP. They are lobbying for appointment of district commissioners, magistrates, police officers in the constituency who belongs to their party. We have seen this government hiring people who retired 10, 15 years ago to the government positions again just because they hold a particular either Jamaat Islami or BNP political ideologies. In such situation, we could not say this election was free, this election was inclusive, this election was fair, and when it comes to the participation of the religious minority, it is well known in Bangladesh and everywhere else, the Bangladesh's main religious minorities, the Hindu communities, they always vote for Bangladesh Awami. They have been seen as the vote bank, the 8 to 10% vote bank for Bangladesh Awami League. Why they do that? Because Bangladesh Awami League has the idea of secularism. Bangladesh Awami League, which Bangladesh Awami League promotes inclusivity and what's enshrined in our constitution, a Bangladesh regardless of race, religion, and gender. What happened in this election in the rural areas, not in the urban areas, that BNP Jamaat Islam thugs, to ensure participation in the election, they threatened the minority communities. We have seen videos of it. We have seen leaders of parties going to the Hindu communities and saying, if you do not come to election, I'm going to burn down your houses, your whole community. These are evidential. So whatever presence of Hindu communities we have seen in the election, it was because of the threats and intimidation. They did not have any choice. They did not have any choice to boycott this vote. Also, they did not have the choice of participation because their political opinion part as well, which is Bangladesh Awami League, then this must be said here as well that to our audiences that in any country the faith and trust of the minorities to an ideology and to that state is the acid test of democracy, is the acid test of fairness. And Bangladesh Awami League, by earning that trust from the religious minorities, we know that in Bangladesh, religious minorities are vulnerable. These vulnerable people trust Bangladesh Awami League. That speaks the volume, Mr. Dev. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alam. And you have expressed deep concerns about the inclusivity of the election. And Mr. Mamun, how do you see this from the human rights point of view and also from the democratic rights point of view, that that a significant part of the population couldn't exercise their citizen duty as they were taken for ransom, that either you vote for a center right party or for an extreme right party. So they were not given a wide set of options. How do you analyze that?
So I think we are making a mistake here when we are saying that there is a political party that was suspended, like Bangladesh Awami League, because it's not just a political party, right? So because like when you are saying that like, oh, there's one political party that was suspended, it doesn't mean just a political party. Mr. Tariq Rahman himself is saying there were 51 political parties attended this election. So it's not really like a right way of explaining the situation here. If you look in the West, so everywhere, not just like let's say like I'm in Canada or Jihan here is in the States or UK, there are always two sides, right? So if you look at the like let's say Democrat Party, or we have the Republicans, imagine an election being held only with Republicans or only with Democrats. Same in the UK, like Labour Party or the Tories, Conservatives. So if you try to do like a poll and only one party was allowed to participate, that's exactly what happened. Like we are forgetting that the people who contested against each other, like the Jamaat Islami and BNP, they were in the government within an alliance before. That's not new to Bangladesh, that they are actually the same ideological background people. They are the right wing in Bangladesh. So the entire, it's not just Bangladesh Awami League, there is also the third largest party. Bangladesh Awami League is the largest party. There is also the third largest party, Jatiyo Party. That's largest group of the Jatiyo Party was also not allowed to participate. So now you have one party, you are one party that they actually are subdivided into two different groups, and they contested against each other. And they knew that what is going to happen during the election day, because you saw on media, you saw like how BNP leaders are begging for Awami League votes. Because it's not just Awami League votes, it's the entire left wing. So that's the mistake we are making. So now coming to like even like let's say like okay, this is a party. This is the party, not okay. When you say a party, this is not also a party just largest in Bangladesh. This is also the fourth largest party in South Asia. It's a voice you are suppressing. It's like a voice in a region in the world. That's what you're doing. You're hurting not just a country, also the entire region. Like that entire region, like the left like people who are in the left, they are being impacted by it. And also, who are you promoting? You're promoting the extremist people. You're promoting the people like basically who has caused trouble, like in the name of religion, who has caused trouble in the region, who has participated against the independence of the country. And these are the people are being established. Results, like we saw the results, election results. We saw the results during the election day when nobody showed up. That is the result. People already gave their verdict, but not showing up in the poll. Like according to our information, only
on that point, Mr. Mamun, there was a sort of a narrative being spouted by Yunus and his minions that Awami League is gone. Awami League doesn't exist. But this low turnout, this 20, 30% or 40% people not showing in the voting center shows that they have still support amongst this huge number of population.
I know many BNP supporters also did not participate in this election because they also know what happened previous night. They also know how the election engineering happened. Tariq Rahman himself answered a question when journalist asked that like what kind of election engineering happened. He himself admitted that they engineered the voters. So what does that mean? Like when you say engineering the vote?
I would like to point out something to Dr. Day. That Dr. Day, according to our estimate, the election, 70% of the people boycotted the election. Only 30% came to the election, and within the 30%, probably 8 to 10% was rigged votes. So yeah, it's 70% no turnout. It's the people. 70% people spoke for Bangladesh Awami League.
So like going back to my point, like if in any democracy, like the competition, that's what it works, right? Because like there is like left and right always. So like think of it like a football match. If one of the strongest team is not allowed to play, let's say like you're playing against like I'm pretty sure people in the West can relate to maybe American football, but it's the same what it is soccer, right? It's a World Cup. So if Brazil and Argentina, they're like two biggest power in soccer now. If one of them are not playing, now you divide Brazil to play in two separate teams, and then you held an election or the game, and what's the results gonna be? Would people show up for that? That's just a practice mess, you can call it. That's not an election. It can be a practice mess. Okay, we can expect like, okay, this is the quality Yunus can show, what kind of election he can hold, what kind of election he can have for people. That's just the showing that the Yunus is failed. He's not qualified to, like, not just for election, he failed in every aspect of running the government. So that's why my immediate reaction was he should just go. Because like he can't run the country, he can't run an election, he can't run anything. Because he couldn't like held together Grameen Bank either without corruption, without paying, like he couldn't pay his taxes. I think Yunus is just overrated by Western media. I don't see like any of his quality that actually being impacted, because like even like we're going off topic now. Like let's stay within the election time. How Yunus, like if you see like how they even treated the election, it was more of a referendum than the election for the government itself. Because nowhere you saw the government is actually asking people like, oh, please vote to elect your next party. No, they were asked to vote for ha or na, which is yes or no for his referendum. So that's not election. And like obviously government, when the moment the government starts supporting a single referendum, like towards like, oh, say yes to what, without an explanation and nothing, all of that people understood. I was surprised actually people's reaction, like how they reacted. Because like, yes, we were expecting probably, yes, after so many months of like turbulence in Bangladesh, after all of this, like people want to get rid of Yunus. Still they didn't show up in election poll. For why? What reason? Because that's
so
where
you're saying that people not showing up during the election day was a strong message to
Yunus, to us,
Yunus.
to everyone, to the world. I'm pretty sure, like I haven't seen any good report on, like, I'm sorry to say, the Western media is just being blinded about the entire situation. I haven't seen a good report on the actually what happened during the election day. But I had people walking around with live cameras showing me what's inside there. We had numerous photos and videos. This is a country. Don't forget, this is a country of 200 million people. This is not
Actually,
like Canada with
the Commonwealth Parliamentary Observation Team, although they didn't criticize the actual election process, but they raised their concern about participatory elections for the future democracy. So they expressed their optimism that in the future there will be more participation by all major political parties. Of course, it's a diplomatic phrasing. And in that way, they actually sent out a message that these elections were not sufficiently adequately participatory. And as you know, that it was an understatement. Of course, they could have teared them apart, but they didn't do that. But so we can see that even international communities are not fully convinced about the inclusivity of the elections.
Like in any democracy, if you see, like competition works only if major political forces can participate. Number one party is not participating. Number three, like Jatiyo Party is not participating. Now you have number two, BNP and its alliance, Jamaat. They were in power together. They were in the government together. So like this is what it shows, like how the election was. Like the critics, like you're right, critics are arguing like removing such a large party means millions of voters, where effectively left without that like opinion. They cannot express what they want, right? If the voting day was peaceful, if the structure of the election was like balanced, then probably the situation would have been different. But like they showed what they are previous night too, right? Like the engineering Tariq Rahman is talking about. Like even if the election was technically well run, excluding a major political force, I don't want to say political party, it's a major political force in South Asia. So when you're eliminating that, raises a question about the fairness and representation. And I think it's valid for us to ask, like, if it is an election or selection.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Mamun.
When it comes to an election, national parliamentary election, it is actually a contest of ideas between right wing and left wing, progressive and conservative. I'll give you an example of how this contest of ideas were in this election. You know that women rights for a country like Bangladesh, where we have a large amount of conservative people who likes to create obstacles on the path of advancing the women's cause. And here, progressiveness is important. In the past, Bangladesh have developed hugely in this one department, especially Bangladesh, even in the index of women empowerment and the ranking is 28 in Asia. And among all developing countries, Bangladesh is at the top. This year, in this election, the extreme hard right, religious, political Islamists, Jamaat-e-Islam said they are promoting this idea to keep women out of the work, that if you stay at home, government will pay you money. Government will give you money for staying home. We haven't seen any opposition to that from the BNP, because a large number of BNP supporters also are in unison of this idea that women should, wear veil, they shouldn't go to workplace.
I think
They are conservatives. They're conservatives as well. So there was no opposition to it.
Mr. Alam, I think one statistics, one single piece of stat can justify what you are saying. Since 1991, Bangladeshi parliament has shown progressively increased number of women and religious and ethnic minority people being represented in the parliament. So, but
Exactly.
this time, because the liberal, progressive, left political parties were not either participating or they were severely being restricted. So that's what we see, that only four religious and ethnic minority people are now in the parliament, which is the lowest number since 1991, and only 7 women MPs, which is again the lowest since 1996.
And this is happening a country that was run last 30 years by women prime minister.
Yes. So that shows that the shift is towards more conservative and religiously extremist
And
paradigm.
that's what I was saying. It's not a political force. Like you saw, like how women were suppressed even before the election, like how they were unwanted, they were name called, right? So
Yeah.
like that's the
Yeah,
message, right? That's what I'm saying. It's a political force you suppressed. It's not a party.
Yeah.
I mean,
Now,
parliamentary candidates of Jamaat-e-Islami, they were calling the women students, the grounds of the Dhaka University, harlots. They were calling women who go to work are harlots. On camera, before media, we have seen this, okay? The demonizing of women. It's like, oh my, like, it's unacceptable that we have earned so much in terms and so much sacrifices our women made to earn the progress we have today. It's been like, for 100, 200 years, we have been fighting for these little rights we have. And
so if effectively
in the
all the
past years,
democratic and progressive achievements that we made over the years are all being completely destroyed by these
Our
elections.
women fought on the street for the rights. It didn't come to them just like no one gave it to them. They fought for it.
And I mean, gentlemen, if we consider Yunus regime was bad, I think we also have even bigger concerns because of this referendum or July Charter or whatever the nonsense that is. We are we may potentially be witnessing even worse time because of that referendum. Would you like to shed some light on that how it is going to fundamentally change the characteristics of the country and can push us into greater political uncertainties moving forward?
But before that, I have a quick question. Whichever party will form the government, are they legally bound to implement this referendum? Will
So
they have to implement this referendum?
the answer lies on, like, there is actually very interesting. Like, I would probably like rely on some of the lawyers we know of, like they are specialists in constitution, not like some sort of journalist coming out of, or writer coming from the states and writing our like without any consultation or nothing. Like, if you saw like how the entire thing happened, right? Ali Riaz, like, who is he to write a constitution? What kind of experience does he have? Is he a lawmaker? Because constitution is the biggest law for a country. We all know that. And he's not a lawmaker, he's not a lawyer, he's not like, who he's a writer. So is it like a storybook we are writing, or what are we talking about here? Are we talking about
Or Kazi Mamun, I have another question. Or we know he is an academic, he's a professor. Is he, as a professional in academia, is he at the top of his field? Does anyone in this world outside Bangladeshis, like we in Bangladesh, we know him for his populist talking, but anyone outside Bangladesh, do they know him as a political scientist? Does he go to those seminars where all the top people contribute? No. Who is he? The university he teaches
And
is not
if we
even a top university in the United States. I'm
particularly
not
Mr.
saying,
Alam,
yeah.
if you compare him with the people who actually drafted our 1972 constitution, they were the eminent lawyers.
That would be a sin to do that, to think
Yes,
about something.
they were people's representatives as well. They were elected in 1970 elections, and on top of that, they had inside
Actually,
out knowledge about.
Dr. Day, Dr. Day, the drafters of our constitution and the founders of our constitution, I wouldn't say, let's say Dr. Kamal Hussein at that time, he chaired, and he was a very young barrister at that time. He was very young. What they had, but what is actually the constitution of Bangladesh? We have to understand. But the constitution of Bangladesh, I mean, you do not need to be a lawyer or constitutional expert for that. You can just read Bangladesh. Constitution of Bangladesh is so well written and our history is so clear and preserved. We could talk about it. See, you know that American Declaration of Human Rights, French Declaration of Man and the Human Rights after the French Revolution, and the American Bill of Rights, Bangladeshi constitution follows this trend. So you could say it's Jeffersonian. It's an extension of Jeffersonian philosophy. What we do best is that we took everything in it. The US Bill of Rights, the French Declaration, UDHR at that time available, all those Declaration of Human Rights, then we made it better. In the 1960s, we have the Declaration of Human UDHR, and then 200 years ago, all other charters, and then in this 20, 30 years, okay, whatever problem we have faced, and whatever they cannot include in UDHR because of political issues between different political corners and political clans. Bangladesh made it better. Bangladesh just made it better. That's our constitution.
And maybe like Mr.
Best
Alam,
constitution in the world.
just to add to you,
Also,
Mr.
no,
Alam,
I just want to add this point. I just want to add this point before I forget it. What's best about Bangladeshi constitution is that we did not make it the way what Jefferson regretted. We know that famous comment by Thomas Jefferson, like what right this generation has to pass on, like a right to the other generation to think that these rights would be okay for the other generation. That's the famous Jefferson's quote. So what Bangladesh did is that our constitution can be rewritten, but to rewrite it, there is a procedure. Kaji Mamun. So that's the best part of Bangladesh constitution. What's this referendum?
yeah, that's what I was actually trying to point out to you, that like Bangladeshi constitution is actually one of the most modern constitution in the world. And the reason for that is, like, if you look at, like, even in the Western world, like, let's say at some point black people couldn't vote, and at some point that the women, they couldn't vote. Their constitution actually did not secure these things, right? These are like their constitution, even I would say American constitution, right? They probably went through so many referendums, so many changes over the years. Then it became like what it is today. And still it's not modern enough, because Bangladesh did not only look into only one problem. Like when we are talking about, like, let's say the modern societies, like, let's say Nordic countries, Finland, Norway, Canada, we have similar things, like, let's say, free education, free healthcare, and like social security. During Sheikh Hasina's time, more than 20 million people, I think, 20 to 30 million people got direct benefit from government. And there was like 10 million people, like they would get like monthly, whatever the like amount of money to support their needs. So those are the things typically what do you see? You don't even see them in the States.
In this regard,
you
okay,
see them.
I'll include another example.
There is social security here, but there's no free education, right? If you go to the Nordic countries, they have free education and social security. So we took the best from all, and that's what the constitution is about. And there is nothing to change. Who is Alarius to question our constitution?
And in the new, in the proposed changes, yes,
I would include that how good our constitution is. I'll give you an example. What Mamun Bhai was just saying about Nordic countries, and now we know they have the best political system, also Germany. So what is the most modern political, like the philosophy now? Like we know libertarianism, we know all other like dictatorship, democracy. The best right now is social democracy. After all these years, we see social democracy. Now see what Bangladeshi constitution is. In 1971, when these ideas were crafted, we were making it. Here is what Bangladeshi constitution. You see our main 4 principles of our constitution: democracy, secularism. Then to democracy we added socialism for social justice. So you include democracy and socialism for social justice. Together it becomes social democracy. It's enshrined in the constitution of Bangladesh, in our 4 main principles. What Ali Riaz wants to do, change this main 4 pillar. One of the amendment is changing this main 4 pillar: secularism, democracy, then socialism for social justice. They want to change it. That's their proposal. One of the proposals that they could want to include like a religious equality and etc. Ambiguous talk without any, without being precise. Like you have to be exact when it comes to law.
So to answer,
also it should include broader context. That's exactly what they're doing.
What happens if the parliament does not pass this referendum? BNP, after forming the government, they said that we don't want to pass the referendum.
Okay, so that's what I was going to. Since this interim government itself is like unconstitutional, right? We all know that it's proven, and it starts all from the process to like the regulations. It's not just for one reason they are like you cannot say just a single reason why, what kind of legitimacy this government has. They don't. So since they don't have any like legitimacy, their referendum means nothing. So it's in BNP's hand now. However this sham election happened, that happened actually according to our constitution. So the
they actually now with this referendum, Mahmoud, with this referendum, they want to change it. See the
the conflict here. Look at the conflict though. So the day you are having the election according to the constitution, like this is my constitution, you're having an election and you're having another referendum to denounce this constitution. Like what it is.
They will have to take that over.
Article 7A,
right? They will
Yeah,
have
if you are like, let's say, if you respect the constitution, you can't have referendum because this referendum is by illegitimate government, Muhammad Yunus, right? So like you can't have both. You cannot say, oh, this is truth, and based on that, this is also truth, because this truth then denounce this. This constitution denounced the government and any activities by this government. Only one.
Actually, to be honest, I am not against a referendum, because referendum is something when elected government or the people's participant cannot make a decision, where we have seen it in the case of Irish referendum. They did it in terms of blasphemy and same-sex marriage, and many other countries. Australia did it for same-sex marriage, that when the politicians think, okay, we are not the sole authority of making this decision, changing the characteristics of the country so drastically, they can go to people for referendum. However, the constitution of Bangladesh does not allow a referendum right now. What we could do, that since we know it is in line with the democratic principles and manner, a referendum, Bangladeshi constitution allows amendment of the constitution. So if the referendum is so important, the way should be go into the parliament, and the parliament with 2/3 majority amends the constitution. After the amendment, you can go for a referendum. However, the referendum, what happened right now, does not have any constitutional validity. It is unconstitutional. Now the second, what they're going to do, they know it. So in this referendum, one of the provisions they are including is abolition of Article 7, 1 and 2, the provisions of the Constitution. What Article 7 does? Article 7 ensures the sanctity of our Constitution, that this is the supreme law, that if you cannot have a law in this country if that violates this constitution.
And even the suggested changes that Ali Riaz and his allies, it's just only few people together, they drafted the so-called July Charter.
There is no public consultation before that either.
Absolutely.
Ali
And surprisingly, but not so surprisingly, that it doesn't even include democracy.
No. Here is something. I'll tell you what Ali Riaz's interest here. Ali Riaz is a mediocre academic in the field of academia. If you read what he has done, it's on the internet. It's easy these days, okay, to just go search. See Ali Riaz's work. You'll see this guy is mediocre. He has ambition. He has dream. He wants to go sit down with great people, big people. He is not invited. He does not, like, they do not invite him. So if he could, like, proclaim himself before them, hey, I am I am the founder of a constitution. That is big, huge. So a mediocre academic going to say, I am the
And we know
founder of a
Dr.
constitution.
Shahidin Malik
And
declined
that's
to be
his
part of
interesting.
this. So Dr. Shahidin Malik, who is very well known, a man of integrity, and he could sense that there was a potential, there was some mischievous plan by Yunus, naughty plan by Yunus, right? And he declined the offer, and then Ali Riaz was parachuted all the way from Illinois State University, which is, with all due respect, is not a top university in the US, right? Has been brought to Bangladesh to head this particular sham constitutional reform commission. And over the last 16 months or so, or 12 months to be precise, this Constitution Reform Commission did a complete mockery with a bunch of Mickey Mouse political parties who do not have even more than 5 members in their party, who even do not get more than 100 votes in any elections. They were given the equal say in order to manipulate and dictate Yunus's own agenda. Am I right?
Yes, and even they show the election vote count in the election was 60%, 50, according to the government. The vote count for this referendum is only 11% people. So it is like it's rejected by people. It is unconstitutional by law. If the most basic of state business is the most basic is rule of law. So the first question is it in accordance with the law? You had a chance to make it lawful. Go to the parliament, have the referendum. That makes it lawful. But they chose the unlawful way. And that's what it is. If you choose the
Okay,
unlawful
gentlemen,
way, there is
I'm
no validity.
conscious of time. We just have got 7 minutes left. Briefly, already Mr. Jihan has actually highlighted some of the irregularities that happened. You guys also have touched upon that. So if you could just take us through. It's not just about the election day, even that from the day before we saw people carrying cash were nabbed by security forces, and also there were a lot of stuffing ballot papers and everything and other stuff we have noticed. Could you please just reflect on that? How does it impact the overall impression of the elections? Yeah, Mr. Mamoon, you can go first, please.
Okay, so the bigger structural problem here is like the observers, they also pointed out this. There are 3 aspects. So number 1 is the political environment remains is still what we have is highly polarized. Pre-election clashes, that's something showed the deep mistrust in the system and the election, and also the democratic norms are being fragile, right? So even if election day looked calm and the overall political climate was like we saw that the overall political climate was tense. So in democracies, like the trust in any system is more important than the procedure itself, like the election itself. So when you don't believe in the election, whatever the results you get, it doesn't really matter. If the large parts of the population feel excluded, they believe reforms were rushed, and they suspect that the voting counting, the irregularities they saw, then the political legitimacy of like whatever the government is there, it weakens. So it's today or tomorrow or 6 months from now, you have to listen to people and get their opinion if you really want change, right?
Excellent. That's very insightful and very thought-provoking, Mr. Mamoon. Mr. Alam, any concluding remarks on the irregularities?
This election was illegitimate. This election was illegitimate because it was not inclusive. Election is about celebration of democracy, a national parliament election. The festivity, it's a festival of political ideas, telling people what's coming to you next, telling people what our plan is for the 5 years, what's our plan for the 10 years, 20 years, plan from all sides, both sides. And based on that, people elect their representatives for next 5 years. It's as simple. for any country, for every country in this world.
I think the
And
biggest question remains is like, did it strengthen public trust in democracy? Because that's the main point of having an election. No, it didn't. People rejected the election.
Yes,
exactly, exactly,
absolutely. And
because the election turnout in Bangladesh always is very high, 88%, 87%, 85%. We like it. It's like we do a month-long festival in entire country. Everything
and also,
stops.
if you notice that the winning party, BNP, is also not very exuberant about their achievement. They're not showing a lot of what you can say expression of genuine emotion after the election results were declared. It
And
looks like
it's all it is because
No,
Brazil
no,
is
no,
winning
BNP
against
is
Argentina.
scared.
yeah,
Brazil is like playing against their home team.
No, no, no. BNP is afraid. BNP is frightened. BNP is frightened. You know what? The change of Article 7 of the Constitution of Bangladesh, you know what it does also? I know BNP's founder was a dictator. However, BNP now wants to become a democratic party, at least in pen and paper.
yeah,
What it does, if we do not have Article 7, it allows unconstitutional forces to take over or to oust a constitutional government to
yeah,
democratically elected government. Now, if we do not have Article 7 and Article 7 in the Constitution, that means our military has a very bad reputation. Bad reputation of, you know, halting the democratic process. General Zia,
interference into
and
politics.
also, and not just halting the democratic process, killing the democratic leader.
Leaders. Yes,
So
That,
before
that our military has that reputation. And Tariq Rahman, they're frightened without Article 7. Article 7 now imposed in our Article 7 enshrined in our constitution. Later, it was amended to make sure that, that these killings of political leaders by the military or any other actors should not happen again. So if this referendum passes through, Tariq Rahman, the prime minister, next prime minister, leader of the BNP, do not have that shield over him. The
yeah,
military can come, take power, or any other powers. And we are now hearing that our military is not just our military. Our military listens to the United States. Our military, one part of our military is
thanks,
controlled by
thanks,
the
so
Mr.
Pakistanis,
before
some by
we add,
Turkish,
I would like to
some
add
by
something.
Indians, and so like anyone can harm anyone now. So we are in a
Thanks,
very
Mr.
bad situation politically with this referendum and this election.
Mr. Jehan, very
Yeah,
brief. Yeah,
very brief, yeah. So before I end, I would like to address the people who will be forming the government. The first duty for you will be to remove this unlawful ban on the activities of Awami League. And as Mr. Tariq Rahman has mentioned that he would lead the country with the rule of law. So respecting the rule of law, you must reject this referendum at the parliament. This referendum must not pass to you.
thank you very much, dear viewers. You have
I just
listened
want to
to.
point out one point, Dr. Day, to Jihan. You do not need parliament. You need a court who is free and fair. This referendum is challenging
Wouldn't
the court
stand.
in one way that this referendum is not lawful. It doesn't have lawful
Yeah,
status.
legal basis. Yeah, great. Thank you
No
very
legal
much,
basis.
gentlemen. Thanks, and thanks for your time and your valuable comments and your thoughts. Dear viewers, from this discussion, we understand that if Yunus regime was bad, then what is coming forward could be even worse, because that's what Yunus has planned. That's what Yunus and his gong have been articulating and have been planning over the years, not just in last 18 months. While we should, so many people should feel relieved that there was an election and there could be some transition to democratic norms and practices, but we are equally concerned that this parliament will have 70 odd Jamaat Islami members who could never get more than 10 seats or 30 seats maximum with an alliance in the past. So we are heading towards tough time. The secular, progressive, pluralistic, liberal identity of Bangladesh is very much at stake. I remind you a popular slogan which was very popular during the Spanish Civil War in 1936, no pasarana, which means they shall not pass. We have to remember that. All the Republican Spanish civil warriors were holding their line together against right-wing fascist regime. They fought till the last moment in order to save their political ideology, their belief, their country. It's about time that we also come together, hold our line, make sure that these countries' basic characteristic, these countries' identity, these countries' nature, these countries' future are all in progressive hands. We cannot let this country drift towards right-wing and ultra-right-wing bigots. You stay well, stay safe. Till the next time, I'm Bidit Day signing off. Thank you very much.